Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about how to keep your medical coding skills up to date for veteran coders. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay, I got a message a few days ago from a viewer who asked me, Blue, I feel like, I've been coding for a few years and I feel like I am starting to forget some of the basic things. What are some things I can do to refresh my memory and keep my skills up to date? So we're gonna get into this right now. All right, when it comes to being a veteran medical coder, and you may think, well, my audits look good and I've been going at this whole time, I shouldn't have to review any skills. I know what I'm doing. The thing is, what happens when we start doing that is we start to get complacent in our knowledge base. And so we start to do the things that have always been done, right? We've all heard this. We've always done it this way. We've always done it this way. No. In medical coding, you cannot always do it the way it's always been done. We have to stay on top of the new changes because the way it's always been done, we don't know when that started. And when that we've always done it this way started could have been years ago. And as we know, the coding guidelines and new things come up every single year. So every single year, these new things need to be adapted and adopted and walked through. And if you're just doing it the way it's always been done, you can miss out on a lot. And there could be some incorrect coding going on. So I always strongly recommend that if you are looking to keep your skills fresh as a veteran medical coder, that you make sure that every year when you get a new book, that you're reviewing the coding guidelines. Even if you read them through just once, at least you know that you've read the entire thing one time. I always tell the students who tune into my channel to read them once per week. Clearly, if we've been at this quite a while, we know the fundamentals of the guidelines. So that is, not necessary, but it does help when you review the new guidelines every year, even though you think you might already know it. You want to make sure that you are reviewing those guidelines every year. I am going to be leaving some workbooks that I do recommend in the description box below. Now, going through the workbooks is like basically going back to school again. And sometimes when we are in our facilities and we start to get into that complacent rut of doing things the way they've always been done, it's a good thing to go through workbooks and go through exercises to see if we can actually get those right answers and those correct answers the way the book does, okay? It's very important to stay on top of those. The books that I'm going to be recommending are from the American Hospital Association. The AHA puts out a really good workbook that covers ICD-10-CM and ICD-10-PCS. Now, even if you are not working on the inpatient side of the house and you are an outpatient coder, it is still okay to review the diagnoses portions of those exercises. That is totally fine. If you don't want to learn inpatient coding because you say, well, Blue, I'm on the outpatient side, I really like the outpatient side, there's no need for me to learn inpatient. It is entirely up to you. But I always say as medical coders, we need to be prepared for anything. And even though we are on the outpatient side, perhaps you have been in the outpatient side the whole time, it doesn't hurt for you to expand your knowledge base and start learning something about the inpatient side of the house. Because you never know. You may want to challenge yourself one day to starting in a different place. Or maybe you have a job opportunity that might be able to come along, and it would be nice if you knew the inpatient side of the house. So working through those workbooks by the American Hospital Association, again, I strongly recommend those because I really like the way that it's broken down. It gives you the rationale and it gives you the answers. So it's very important when you get these workbooks to get the ones that have the answers in them because that way you can at least grade yourself and know. And taking a weekend to go through these isn't going to hurt you, okay? It's actually going to make you a stronger coder. Sometimes we get stuck in the same clinic and, we want to expand and we want to be able to do all these things. But if your facility is like my facility, you have to have had some experience in another clinic before you can ask to be moved to another clinic. So if you are looking to move around and expand your knowledge base, then take the time to go through those workbooks, go through that particular section. Maybe it's gastro or cardio or neuro or ortho, and go through those and get practice in. There's also a website, justcoding.com. I recommend this all the time to the students who tune into my channel. Justcoding.com has a free subscription and they have a paid subscription. The free subscription, which is the one that I recommend, has a lot of free coding quizzes. Now they have coding quizzes for inpatient coding, outpatient coding, and the procedures, right? And the diagnosis coding. So it's got all kinds of free quizzes on there. So it is a very good resource, and I like it because it gives you good practice. You know, you can just go through the book. These are 5-question quizzes, and you can be like, well, you know, just go through them and have a good time. That's what I do. You know, I sometimes will go through those and I will practice, and I was like, oh, I like that, or it'll jog my memory, because I do primarily code for orthopedics and podiatry currently. But I still always make sure that I stay on top of like gastro and neuro and psych and all these other clinics, because just in case I get pulled to do something else or help somebody else out, I know what I'm doing, you know, boots on the ground and running, right? You know, I want to make sure that I am ready at all times for anything, because it has happened in the past where I've had to go and rescue a clinic, and it was okay because I had experience before. And I know how to do my research. And knowing how to do your research will also help you to stay up on your skills. Because if you are working in a clinic and you feel like you're just not really getting it, or you feel like there could be more detail and there's just something missing in your knowledge base, go to websites that are specific for that specialty. Orthoinfo.org is one of the websites that I recommend. And this is a website that will give you all this information about orthopedic diagnoses. And when it does, it breaks down the pathology, it breaks down about the injury codes and what does it mean. It's very important to understand what happens in these things. I was in on a meeting once, and this was a teleconference meeting, and there was actually an auditor who said, is a sprain the same as osteoarthritis of the knee? Oh boy. You want to talk about like flipping out? I flipped out, because these are two completely different things in the grand scheme of things, right? And so it's all about, you need to educate yourself, and especially if you are an auditor, you really got to educate yourself. But even when you are just a coder, it doesn't mean, well, I'm just a coder, I just do what I'm supposed to do, and that's it, I collect my check and go home. Wrong. You have to be willing to step in and really dig deep, okay? Taking these quizzes, number one, is going to help you. Number two, going through the workbooks is really going to start to jog your memory again, because maybe you've slipped into a bad habit, and maybe you weren't supposed to be coding it a particular way, and then now you could see the correct way to do it. It's all about taking that initiative and doing that. Now, when it comes to procedural coding, the AAPC has their CPC exam prep book, right? It's the prep book, it's called prep book or study guide, whatever, but it's the one that's for the CPC exam. Now, I happen to like their book, right? Which is like, really, Blue? Yes, I really do like their book. I've tutored many students, and they always come to me with this book. Well, Blue, I see this question and I don't really understand. Well, when I'm explaining this to them and I'm breaking it down for them, then they read the answers and the rationale, and we're the same. So that's why I recommend the AAPC study guide for your CPT practice. If you are looking to get back into that practice again, that is a very good workbook to go through. And even though you're not taking the CPC exam again, it doesn't mean that you can't practice with it, right? And if you're looking for a cheaper alternative than going to the website to get it, you can get it from eBay or you can get it from Amazon. And it is cheaper sometimes, okay, you can find a cheaper version. You can get the 2020 version if you like. because even if you're using 2021 books, 2020 was still okay, right? There was a few updates, and I'm sure you can figure it out if your answer doesn't match the books, if it was because of an update. I'm sure you could figure that out. But yes, it is so important when you are a veteran coder to not get complacent and to not get into that mindset of, oh no, I already know. I would never say that. I have had a lot of experience with many different clinics, every single clinic under the sun, except for radiology, right? Interventional radiology. That's the only one that I have not done. But even having all of this experience, I still do not say, well, I know it all, because I would be lying. I don't know it all. I know a lot, but I don't know it all. And it's impossible, even if you have more knowledge, right? To know it all, because things change and update every year. So staying on top of those workbooks, working through the workbooks, like I said, just take the weekend to do a few quizzes, or go through like a certification prep book. That's another good way too, to kind of gauge if you really, if you need to study on something, right? So get one of the practice exam books if it's for the CCS or the CCSP or even the CCA or the CPC. Get the practice exam book and go through it. Use it as practice and see, because those practice exam books are going to test you on everything, right? Not just the coding side, but also the reimbursement side, and also the other things about the law and things like that. You want to make sure that you're staying on top of all those things. And if you say, well, I don't really have time for that, you never know when you're going through somebody's record and you're coding this stuff. And maybe you're not coding it to the highest specificity, or maybe you're not coding it, coding the appropriate procedure, because maybe going through it, you're doing it like it's always been done instead of reading it through, right? When you do things like that, think about that person. And that's what I always tell people, is to think about the person that you're coding their encounter, right? What you select is going to follow that patient. Not only that, the codes you select are going straight to the insurance company. So it's going directly, the billing is going directly to the patient, right? So they have to pay for that. So think about that when you are going through and you're saying, I've always done it this way. That's the wrong way to look at things as a medical coder. And if you're saying, well, Blue, I'm struggling with like medical terminology, these doctors, they use all these big words. You can always get the medical terminology workbooks. Again, I will leave the ones that I recommend in the description box below. When you're looking at documentation and you're seeing a word on there that you don't quite understand, there's nothing wrong with looking the word up, right? Looking the word up and just really sort of taking the time to kind of get what they're saying. And going through and studying anatomy again doesn't hurt either, because especially when you are in a clinic like ortho and you're having to look at all these bones and muscles and tendons, it's a really good idea to know where it is in the body. And when you're talking about the particular bones in the hand or in the feet, there's so many bones in the hands and the feet, right? And knowing all those bones and knowing your anatomy is really going to come into play. So there's a lot of different apps out there. Don't ask me about the apps when it comes to human anatomy because I don't use apps. I have always used a book. And again, my book recommendations are in the description box below. So I do have a Patreon channel if you're interested in that. I do crossword puzzles and word searches, and I do critical thinking exercises. Now my critical thinking exercises are like scenarios that I come up with, and I give them to my audience on Patreon because I want them to look and really think about the codes, because I will put crazy codes on there and I'll put crazy different scenarios. So that way you actually have to think. And when you're thinking like, okay, how do I get this or how do I get that? And then I'll talk about it. I will either write out my rationale or I will talk about it in a video form. How did I get to that answer or whatever? So it's very important that you look for other avenues to continue your own education. No one will do this for you but you. And when it comes to, you know, getting that extra practice in, that's all on you. I tell the students who watch my channel all the time, you have to make a schedule. And even when you think you know, and even when you feel like you're confident, taking a step back and doing a self-audit for yourself, not just relying on what your auditor is telling you. Because remember, your auditor is human too. So they're going to say, okay, well, you know, yeah, this looks good. Okay, good. We're great. and they may miss something as well. So always staying on top of your own knowledge is going to really help you in the long run. Because not relying on other people to be like, oh yeah, you got it, you got it, you got it. When you actually understand it yourself, then you can catch yourself, right? Because a good auditor can catch you if you make a mistake, right? But not always, because we're all human, right? And so again, taking the time to go over those exercises and just kind of retesting yourself and seeing, you know, if you want to get a practice exam book for whatever certification that you have, and just to see and test yourself, could I pass again? That is a good gauge to see if you need to study again, because sometimes it happens. You know, we get into that same clinic and, you know, it's easy to get stuck, you know, in it. But it's very helpful when you take the time to stop and really start to look at other different clinics and not just concentrate on your own, you know, just be ready for anything. But I do recommend that if you are on the outpatient side and you've been there for a few years, start studying on the inpatient side. Give your brain something to challenge itself, because the more you challenge yourself, and especially in this kind of field, the more it'll spark. When you start to do things differently and you start to have to learn again, and your brain is like, okay, we're learning, you know, it's a good time for your passion to reignite when it comes to learning. You know, I always talk about my aha moment, and I had my aha moment back in 2014 when I finally got it. But in 2014, what I noticed when it happened was when I started to study for ICD-10-CM. Now, I was going through 2 simultaneous programs at the same time for training, because we were getting our training for ICD-10-CM 1 year out from the implementation date, which was October of 2015. So we had already started the training the year before. And going through the program at work and going through another program that I had the opportunity to go through at the same time, which was through a different education company, right? Having that double education really helped me, because then what I wasn't understanding from the program that I was going through at work, I started to understand from the other program that I was going through. So they were filling in the holes for what I needed to learn and how I was learning. So it did help me. So that is something that when you start to put yourself back into that student seat and that education seat, and it's not just about, well, I want to go back so I can go and get this other certification or that other certification. It's not about that. You can put that aside. If you want to get an additional credential, say for the inpatient side, or say for CDI or something like that, those types of things that are going to add value to your name, then sure. You know, obviously take the time, work through the workbooks, and work towards that goal. But if it is just so that you can refresh your knowledge, that is okay too. And then if you want to think about getting a credential, an additional one later on, that is totally fine. But for the time being, you know, concentrate on learning something new. Relax and don't put so much pressure on yourself that, oh, I'm going to do this because I'm going to get another certification. You can, but again, relax first. Take your time, learn again, and embrace that inner student once again, you know, because that is what you're going to essentially turn back into. And it'll help you guys. So that is just my advice anyway. I always recommend reading anyway. But there is tons of really good resources out there that are free. You can check out the American Lung Association. You can check out the orthoinfo.org. website that I recommended. You can also look at cms.gov. Now, CMS has the Medicare Learning Network, and it has a ton of resources on their website that are free and downloadable. So again, guys, take advantage of that. There's also the Novitas website, and that will help you with evaluation and management because there's a lot of really good resources there. And I will leave the Novitas link in the description box as well, so please check it out. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. The links for my Patreon channel will be down in the description box if you're interested in that. Right now, the minimum pledge, I believe, is $5 per month. And if you only want to subscribe for 1 month, that is totally fine. It'll give you access to everything that I've posted, and I really appreciate your support there. Like, guys, please subscribe to my channel, share this video if it helped you, and I will see y'all on the next episode. Bye!